The corridors of royal history are filled with echoes of those who walked away. Men and women who traded crowns for freedom, duty for self-preservation. Yet rarely has such a question fallen upon two princesses who did nothing wrong, who carry neither scandal nor rebellion, but only the weight of their name. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie of York now stand at a crossroads that could alter not only their lives, but the very fabric of the modern monarchy. Will the daughters of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson become the next royals to renounce their titles, not in defiance, but in quiet survival? Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. The thought would have been unthinkable once, that two granddaughters of the late Queen Elizabeth II might consider stepping away from the institution that shaped their every move since birth. Beatrice and Eugenie, long seen as modern symbols of royal grace and relatability, were born into privilege, but not power. They grew up in the long shadow of their grandmother's impeccable reign, their father's scandals, and their cousin's destiny. Yet, as the monarchy evolves under King Charles III and one day Prince William, their place within it becomes less certain, more precarious, and increasingly symbolic of an outdated era the crown seems determined to leave behind. From the very beginning, the York sisters lived a strange duality. They were royal enough to attract fascination, but not essential enough to be protected by the institution. Their lives unfolded in the spotlight, but without the shield of working royal status. They were daughters of a prince, yes, but not heirs, not decision-makers, and crucially, not indispensable to the monarchy's future. For years, this in-between existence seemed harmless, even charming. They could attend weddings and jubilees, smile on balconies, and live partially private lives away from the rigors of royal duty. But that delicate balance shattered when their father, Prince Andrew, became the center of one of the gravest scandals in modern royal history. What followed was not just a family crisis, but an identity crisis. When the Duke of York was stripped of his royal titles and public duties, his daughters faced a reckoning. His father's disgrace became their inheritance. Every public appearance carried a new question. Should they still hold the titles of Her Royal Highness when the man who gave them that lineage had fallen so far from royal grace? Though neither sister had any involvement in his controversies, the connection remained unbreakable, a reminder that in the royal world, blood is both blessing and burden. Within palace walls, the discussion about their future reportedly took on new intensity. King Charles's vision for a slimmed-down monarchy was no secret. Fewer titles, fewer working royals, and a sharper focus on duty over decoration. In that model, there is little room for extended family members who bear the titles but not the responsibilities. For Beatrice and Eugenie, this reality has been looming for years, growing more tangible as the monarchy continues to tighten its circle. It is not personal, it is structural. A monarchy that wishes to survive into the next century cannot afford excess. But for the York sisters, renouncing their titles, or even allowing them to fade quietly into ceremonial irrelevance, would be an act far more personal. To renounce a title is not merely to give up a name. It is to rewrite one's place in history, to erase the public version of oneself that has existed since birth. It means stepping into anonymity after a lifetime of symbolism. For Beatrice and Eugenie, who have carefully balanced professional lives in the private sector with their royal heritage, that transition would be both liberating and devastating. They would gain independence, yes, the freedom to build careers and identities untethered from scandal, but at the cost of the only identity they have ever truly known. Observers close to the royal orbit often describe the sisters as loyal but pragmatic, women who understand the monarchy's delicate politics better than most. They have seen firsthand what happens when titles become liabilities rather than honors. The whispers that they may one day voluntarily step back or renounce their princess styling reflect not defiance, but foresight. In a world where reputation moves faster than royal decree, they may see self-reinvention as survival. If such a step were ever to come, it would not be without precedent. History remembers those who chose freedom over formality. King Edward VIII's abdication in 1936 for love set the template for royal renunciation, though his reasons were personal and his legacy fraught. More recently, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle redefined what stepping back could mean in the 21st century. Not the rejection of duty, but a redefinition of identity. Yet, Beatrice and Eugenie's potential path would differ from both. It would not be rebellion. It would be quiet, considered, and almost dutiful, an act of deference to an institution trying to survive its own contradictions. There is another layer to this, the emotional toll of distance. The sisters' closeness to their parents, particularly to their mother, Sarah Ferguson, has been unwavering. They have stood by her through every scandal and every attempt at redemption. To step away from their titles might also mean stepping further away from the royal sphere that once connected them to the late Queen, the grandmother who adored them unconditionally, who gave them space to be themselves, even as the world defined them through others. Without her steadying presence, they now navigate a royal world less forgiving, less familial, and far more transactional. The Queen's passing marked a shift not just in monarchy, but in meaning. Under her, titles carried continuity. Under Charles, they carry cost. The new royal generation, William, Catherine, and their children, embody a streamlined image of modern monarchy, efficient, polished, restrained. There is no room for ambiguity. The Yorks, for all their dignity, belong to a different royal rhythm, one defined by connection and visibility rather than strategic distance. Their warmth, their openness, even their mistakes make them human. But humanity is not the currency of monarchy. Optics are, and in a world that equates lineage with liability, Beatrice and Eugenie's continued titles may one day be seen as indulgence rather than inheritance. Still, there is a quiet irony here. For years, critics accused the royal family of being cold, detached, bound by hierarchy. Now, in its pursuit of modernization, it risks shedding the very members who give it warmth. Beatrice and Eugenie are not symbols of extravagance or entitlement. They are women who have worked, married, and raised families largely outside the gilded cocoon of royal privilege. They have represented the monarchy with grace when asked, without fanfare or controversy. Their removal from the formal structure, should it come, would mark not only the end of an era, but the beginning of a monarchy more corporate than familial. There are, of course, practical considerations. Titles carry financial and legal privileges, but also public obligations. Renouncing them would simplify certain aspects of their lives, freeing them from scrutiny tied to the monarchy's reputation. It would allow them to engage in business, charity, and public life without the constant question of royal endorsement. Yet, paradoxically, the act of renouncing might draw more attention than remaining quietly within the fold. For a family so defined by continuity, change itself becomes spectacle. If Beatrice and Eugenie were to step away, the palace would likely frame it as evolution, not exile, a voluntary, thoughtful decision in alignment with the king's modernization plan. But beneath that diplomacy would lie a deeper truth. The monarchy is pruning its branches to preserve its trunk. The Yorks, once a vibrant extension of the royal image, have become its cautionary tale. Their exit, if it comes, would be the final act in the slow, painful dismantling of the House of York as a public entity. And yet, for all its inevitability, the idea carries poignancy. The York sisters have never been disloyal, never defiant. They have carried their titles with discretion, balancing affection for their father with respect for the crown. To lose their titles by choice or by policy would not be punishment, but quiet erasure, a symbolic ending to a lineage that began with optimism and ended in retreat. The emotional cost cannot be ignored. To renounce is to admit that the name once synonymous with belonging now carries exclusion. It would be an act of courage, but also of mourning, the closing of a chapter that began long before they were born. Their decision, should it ever come, will not be about rebellion or shame, but survival. In a world that judges not just royals, but the families behind them, Beatrice and Eugenie may see in renunciation the only path to reclaiming their own stories. Perhaps, in the end, this is not a tale of loss, but of evolution. The monarchy, ever cautious, may one day celebrate their independence as proof of its own adaptability. The York sisters, freed from protocol, yet forever tied by blood, could continue to serve the ideals their grandmother cherished, duty, compassion, dignity, from outside the gilded frame. In doing so, they might embody a truth the monarchy itself is still learning, that relevance is not born of titles, but of integrity. The world will watch them closely in the months and years ahead. Every public appearance, every project, every silence will be interpreted as a sign of loyalty, of distance, of change. The question will linger like a quiet echo through the palaces and tabloids alike. Will they stay within the fold, or will they write a new kind of royal story, one not bound by crown or command, but by choice? For now, Beatrice and Eugenie remain who they have always been, devoted daughters, modern women, royal by blood and by grace. Whether they keep their titles or one day let them go, they will carry the legacy of the crown not as inheritance, but as memory. In that, perhaps, lies a freedom no title could ever provide. If you've watched this far, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Should Beatrice and Eugenie hold on to their titles as symbols of royal continuity, or should they step away to forge their own identities? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the untold struggles of the royal family, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Crownverse, where royal history lives on.